boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits Podcast to make you another cocktail. This week's cocktail is the Frankenstein Reviver. And as always, it is the featured cocktail in today's episode. I'm going to start with our shaker with ice. To that, we're going to add gin. 3 tablespoons, which is roughly a half an ounce. Next, 3 tablespoons melon liqueur. Again, roughly another half an ounce. Orange liqueur. I'm using Cointreau. Once again, 3 tablespoons. Roughly half an ounce. Oh, I'm almost out of Cointreau, boys and girls. One tablespoon fresh lemon juice from the plastic lemon. 1 tablespoon. It's not very much, boys and girls. Finally, 1 more tablespoon simple syrup. Close enough. Then we shake. And we take our chilled cocktail glass and strain it in. Supposedly this makes 2 servings. I guess I'm making mine a double. There you have it, boys and girls, the Frankenstein Reviver. It is a very pretty green. It's pretty good. Not bad. Very melon and orange and fruity. Thanks for watching, boys and girls. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See ya.
Sometimes your reputation precedes you, and that seems to be the case in this week's episode of the Scary Spirits Podcast, The Evil of Frankenstein. I mean, Dr. Frankenstein might be obsessed, and arrogant, and at times he has been evil in other movies. But in this film, he is way more compassionate than he is nefarious. It must be quite the burden to automatically be thought of as evil just because of your own existence. I'll have to ask Greg how he handles all that pressure. Maybe he watches horror films and drinks adult beverages. Seems like that would work. Cheers!
Welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and/or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hello, boys and girls. I'm Greg,
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen.
and welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast, the podcast that combines the two very different but highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are you, Karen?
I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I'm good.
You're
It's,
good.
I am. It seems like forever since I've seen you, even though it's only been a week. Just saying. I don't know.
Why are you feeling good? You get a lot of thirsty work done.
This week, yes, but not today. Today, not so much, Karen. Was this week's film my choice?
Yes, Greg, it was. And what movie did you pick for us?
The film I have chosen is it's a Hammer film, Karen. Number one. It's probably the
Okay.
most important thing.
Excellent. Check another one off the list.
Checking another one off the list. There's a lot of them, though. We're not getting film as quick as I would like. It's from 1964, Karen. You remember 1964?
No.
I don't either. We weren't even thought of yet, Karen, back in 1964. Well, at least
I'm
I
sure
wasn't.
someone was hoping for me.
Yes, I'm sure your older brothers and sisters were hoping for a younger sibling
True.
back in 1964. Someone they could blame shit on, probably. I wouldn't know because, I got no siblings. But anyway, I digress. Film I have chosen is The Evil of Frankenstein.
Ooh. Is there a reason you chose that one?
Thank you, Karen.
It just seemed like it needed a ooh.
Yes, this film was released in most countries on May 31st. And this episode comes out May 29th.
Okay.
So we are celebrating its 60th anniversary, Karen.
Yikes.
It's much older than us.
Yes, way, way older.
Way older. So happy anniversary, The Evil of Frankenstein.
Do you have a drink to go with it?
I do, Karen. Funny you should
Excellent.
ask. Drink I have chosen is called the Frankenstein Reviver.
That's appropriate.
It is appropriate, and I knew it when I picked it.
Well, have you seen this movie before?
No, but I read the summary, so I know what it was about.
Well, it's a perfect drink.
Would you like to know how to make it?
Of course.
So you're going to take a half a cup slightly crushed ice. Whatever. I don't think it matters.
I pounded the shit out of my ice.
I didn't. It crushes in the shaker. What's the point of that? Whatever. 3 tablespoons of gin, which is approximately a half an ounce for those of you at home who don't
thought it
have
was an
tablespoons.
ounce.
3 tablespoons is about a half an ounce, according to
Okay.
my measure.
Okay. Did you use a teaspoon or a tablespoon?
It says tablespoons. Maybe I was doing teaspoons though on my thing.
I think maybe you were.
Yeah, because I did equal parts, so it works out.
That's all that matters.
Am I wrong, Karen? I see you looking at your.
I thought I looked it up. There are 2 tablespoons in an ounce.
Okay, so 3 tablespoons would be an ounce and a half.
About.
Damn, I underserved myself.
You underserved yourself. That rarely happens.
No, it never happens. Ever. Actually. But counting everything else I've had to drink tonight, I'm not underserved at all.
Okay, excellent. We don't have to worry about that.
But anyway, 3 tablespoons of gin, which is equal to apparently an ounce and a half. 3 tablespoons melon-flavored liqueur. 3 tablespoons orange-flavored liqueur. 1 tablespoon fresh lemon juice. And 1 tablespoon simple syrup. We're going to place the ice in our shaker or a pitcher. Add remaining ingredients, shake or stir until blended. Then we're going to pour into 2 3-ounce chilled cocktail glasses, which makes sense now because straining out the ice, which makes sense why mine is only like 1 cocktail glass.
Yes.
I was expecting a double, Karen, but I only got a single. So those of you who watch the YouTube channel will see my surprise as I'm pouring it. And I'm like, oh,
I kept the ice in mine because I like crushed ice.
Well, there was some little pieces of ice in mine, but they have since evaporated.
It's a good color.
It is
for
a good color
Frankenstein.
for a Frankenstein movie.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe not this one, but for your usual universal Frankenstein, it is a good color. Did you pour all of yours into one glass, making it a double, Karen?
I did, but I used less overall. I just used equal parts.
I did
I
too, but
halved it.
I did too, apparently, though I didn't mean to. She would give our friends and listeners time to make their own Frankenstein Reviver, Karen.
Of course.
Hold on. All right, Karen, might you have a brief synopsis for us?
I do.
Go on, tell us all the story.
Dr. Frankenstein returns destitute to his home village to recommence his experimental research into the reanimation of dead tissue and stumbles upon his old monster suspended in ice. Though he revives the creature, Frankenstein must seek the help of hypnotist Zoltan to repair its mind. Zoltan then assumes control of the monster, using him to wreak havoc. But when Frankenstein tries to regain power over his creature, he becomes Zoltan's next target.
Thank you, Karen. We are a match.
Not very brief, but it's pretty good. It's one of our better ones.
Pretty good. Do you think it's pronounced Zoltan or Zoltan?
Oh, what did I say? Zoltan.
Zoltan.
I thought that's what they said in the movie.
Okay,
but
that's fine. I'll try to refer to him as that from now on.
I called him the hypnotist through most of it. So.
Okay. All right. Anything you really enjoyed about this film, Karen? I'm sure that I can guess several because it's a Hammer film.
Yeah, I mean, should we just start with great sets and great costumes?
The usual Hammer stuff.
Yeah. Bad blood, great sets, great costumes.
And if it's including Peter Cushing, there's another thing.
Good acting. I tell you what, when I watch Peter Cushing in these movies, I am always impressed with his athleticism. I don't know how much is done by stuntmen or doubles or whatever, but you can just tell the way he moves.
He is pretty athletic.
He's in good shape.
It was, especially in this film, which I made a note of, it's obvious that in some parts he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. But the parts leading up to that, when he's like running and doing all this,
he jumps into the back of a car, like different things where I think I couldn't do that. I don't know how old he is in this movie, but he's very agile. And I'm always impressed by that. There's some good shadow work in it. It's not a lot, but it's in there. I think Peter Cushing is, not to put a play on words, but the real star in the acting department of this film. He plays obsessed and arrogant very well.
52, Karen. He was 52.
That's impressive for 52. I think
we'll see how we do when we are 52, Karen.
Yes.
We can only hope to be as agile as Peter Cushing when we reach that milestone.
That ancient age. I give them credit for trying to make a story that was a little different. Not 100% on board with whether it worked or not, but I give them credit for creatively trying to make something different. I'm also a little torn on the monster's makeup.
Okay.
I can't tell if it belongs in something I liked or something I didn't like. There were scenes where I thought it was pretty good, and then there were scenes where I thought it was terrible. So I don't know where to place that. But that's pretty much all I've got. Other things in it that you liked?
Well, I got the good sets for sure. So this, I'm sure when you watched it, you saw Universal all over it, right? At the beginning. So this was produced by Universal. They had an agreement at this time, Universal and Hammer. So in prior Frankenstein films, alluding to your makeup comment, they purposely did not try anything resembling Universal's Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, right? But in this film, since they were in a partnership, they could try to mimic it somewhat, as well as the laboratory set, which I wrote, the sets were good, mainly because they were in a partnership with Universal, especially the laboratory. In previous Frankenstein's films, they couldn't, make it look too much like Universal's original Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, right? This film, they could. as well as the castle. I think it looked great. It looked neglected. I believed it was left there desolate for years, right? While he was gone. It looked really good. And the lab, for that matter. I also wrote there were good effects in the lab,
That's true. There
thanks
were
to Universal, maybe, but not so much. I mean, they didn't produce the effects. They did a good job with it. All the
lots of
sparks
electricity.
and
Yeah, yeah.
liquid and the dry ice and everything. I thought acting's great. I agree with you on that. So it's got all the shit you expect from a Hammer film. And I like the story too, mostly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Mostly.
This is part 3 of the Hammer Frankenstein story, or whatever, but it breaks with the previous.
It certainly stands alone well.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what it probably
I mean, they
should be
even
viewed
go
as.
over how he made the original monster.
Yes.
So even if you didn't know, you would still put it all together. You
Yeah,
don't
but
need to see the others.
they don't use scenes from the original
No.
Curse of Frankenstein, or whatever the original Frankenstein film was with Christopher Lee, right?
No, but they do in a flashback explain everything quickly.
Yeah, the first one was The Curse of Frankenstein in 1957. And then the next one was The Revenge of Frankenstein, which we haven't done yet, Karen. And then this one, The Evil of Frankenstein. This one is not dependent on the others. This one is pretty much a standalone film, I would say. But that's all I got for things I liked. Anything you did not like so much, Karen? Anything? Anything at all? No? Okay. Moving on.
Frankenstein isn't really evil in this necessarily. It should be called the Evil of Zoltan. Frankenstein isn't really the villain in this.
Are you when you say Frankenstein?
I mean the doctor.
The doctor. Okay.
Yeah.
He's not. He's a very sympathetic character.
He's trying to save his monster most of the time. He still is very driven and he's very arrogant and he's obsessed with his research and all of those things, but he's not, the evil is not Frankenstein.
No.
So that's a little different.
Title's not great. I agree.
There's bad blood, although very little.
Very little.
There's not a lot of, not that you need violence, but there's not a lot of violence in this. It dragged. This thing dragged, I thought. There's a lot of prep work and all the action really happens in the last 30 minutes of it.
Yeah, the beginning is all like flashback and setup for the last 30 minutes, like you said.
There's the deaf girl.
But I didn't really hate it. I didn't bother me much. It
got a little long to me. And there's a deaf girl in there that I don't really know what her purpose is. She's sympathetic to the monster, and there are times where she definitely acts like she can hear. And then there are other times. She
kind of knows what's going on. She's street smart, Karen. She's a beggar girl. She's been living on the streets.
But I don't think she needed to even be in it.
Maybe not.
Stories just, I don't know. It was okay. Like I said, I give them props for creativity, but they didn't really develop Zoltan enough to make him, all of a sudden he turns into this very evil dude.
Well, he's a carny. He's carny folk, Karen.
He's a con man, but that's a big jump to where he goes in the story.
No offense to all you carny folk out there listening.
Well, not every carny folk is a con man, which he definitely was. And again, the makeup is iffy sometimes. What about you? Is there anything you didn't like?
The sound sounded like a scratchy record.
The music was pretty good.
The music was pretty good, but the audio in general was not great. That's the first thing I wrote as the credits are playing, is like, as soon as the movie starts, I hear a scratchy record. Some of the props were not so great, even though I said like there were good props earlier. The heart was really good earlier. Pumping heart, whatever.
Yeah.
But when he's in jail, the bars are obviously wood.
Well, at one point I said,
the grain, in the wood or whatever. And
at one point, I said, I think he could squeeze through those bars. They were so far apart.
And there's bad green screen. But for 1964, it might have been pretty good.
Yeah, I assume it was back then.
But now, not so much. His hair even had a green tint all around it.
But he
Oh,
has good hair. I wrote that at
poor
one
Peter
point.
Cushing. You know who Peter Cushing reminds me of? My father-in-law.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really hit me in this movie for some reason. And I think he is really, really good in this. This might be one of my favorite Peter Cushing Hammer films.
Yeah, it's just weird that he's Dr. Frankenstein, but it shows a whole different side of Dr. Frankenstein, I guess. But in other films, he's so obsessed with what he doesn't even want to have time for a family or his wife or anything else. And in this one, he seems much more compassionate and maybe he's matured. It has been 10
Well,
years.
I did like the small cast. Karen, did you
It
like
is
enjoy
that's
that?
very nice. Yes. I thought Zoltan looked like, do you know who Fred Savage is?
Let me think. Yes, Karen, I know who Fred Savage is.
Well, I thought he looked a lot like an
With or
old.
without the mole. You know what I'm referring to, Karen?
Yes, it's a movie, but I can't. What movie is it?
Can't remember.
It just gets bigger and bigger, and they're trying not to look at it, but they look at it.
Yeah.
I thought Zoltan looked like him.
Oh, it's an Austin Powers film.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay. I knew it was a silly movie like that.
Anything else didn't like?
No, it's Peter Cushing's very good, but this is not one of my favorite Hammer films.
So I wrote, this is a great old school horror film. I really liked it, but we'll get to our cocktail rating shortly. And I thought the makeup looked good too. Looking at it, the picture of the Frankenstein monster now looks good, especially from up close, maybe not so much, but from a distance, it looks really good.
Why does he have to wear those big, heavy shoes?
I don't know. That bothered me, but he always does, even in the
Yeah,
Universal ones.
I know. I don't know
It's
what.
like, is he immune to gravity? He needs
I don't,
magnetic shoes to hold him to the earth. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Other than
They
the
were very
obvious
obvious in this movie
to
for
make him
some
look
reason.
tall, right?
Yes, but
Because the sound, every time he took a step, it was like ka-conk, ka-conk, like metal against metal, like someone's hitting an anvil with a sledgehammer. I did notice also in the makeup when near the end, which maybe they were running out of time or funds or whatever, didn't have time to really do it right. But when the place is on fire or whatever, or something's going on, he puts his hands up. His palms are just like normal of his hands. But most of the time, it's pretty good. His hands and everything. Anything else, Karen? We need to comment on?
no, I don't think so.
All right. Before we give our cocktail rating, would you like to hear a review or two from the time, Karen?
Two. So you have more than Roger Ebert? Oh no, this is too
No,
early for Roger.
1964, Karen.
Yeah.
He was just a
Okay.
baby.
Yeah. What's in Critics Corner?
First, Karen, I have to tell you, this has a 39% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 6 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty high compared to 36%. What do you think Google users think, Karen?
So Rotten Tomatoes is low, which means Google users is high. 88.
Oh my God, so close, Karen.
Dang it.
But you were under 89.
Oh, that's a
89%.
good guess.
It was a good guess. See, I thought you were going to go in the middle between 6 and 3, so whatever.
No, I usually Rotten Tomatoes and Google are like polar opposites, I think. Usually.
All right. First review I have, I'll do the short one first, is from Variety, Karen. Of course, it's dated 12/31/63, as they all are. In this one, Peter Cushing plays the Baron with his usual seriousness, avoiding tongue in the cheek, and he is the main prop in the proceedings. This time, Cushing returns to the castle, which is his scientific playground, and is bent on reviving, there's that word, and coordinating the brain of one of his homemade monsters. Earlier, this character had escaped, but is found conveniently preserved in a glacier. The Baron has sundry other problems on his plate, notably a drunken blackmailing hypnotist, a deaf and dumb beggar girl, the local burgomaster, and the police, but keeps a fairly stiff upper lip throughout. That's variety.
It?
That's it.
Wow. Okay.
They never have any real substance. They don't say whether it's good or not. They just say what it is. Next one I have is from the New York Times, Karen. June 18th, 1964. So I'm not sure when it was released in the States. Probably later. And I will summarize. Universal picked yesterday, a fine sunny day, to unveil 2 entries from the Hammer Productions Gore factory in England. The double bill of Nightmare and The Evil of Frankenstein opened in neighborhood theaters. And then they go on to talk about Nightmare, which I'm skipping, which we will get to at some point, maybe. If we last that long, Karen. If you don't kick me to the curb.
We'll see.
Stay tuned, boys and girls. For the first half, the latest Frankenstein go-around has a succinct pull and a curious dignity. Even, mind you, with Peter Cushing as the baronal scientist sneaking back to his hometown and juicing up our old friend the monster. Up to this point in fine technical scene, the film has some neat attributes. Mr. Cushing is quite persuasive as the hounded, articulate hero. The color is excellent and subdued. So, for added color, are the atmospheric splash of a carnival and a German Hamlet and the intriguing presence of a deaf-mute beggar girl, a corrupt hypnotist, and the Baron's young assistant. With the pace held in smooth rein by the director, Freddie Francis, the picture begins to say something about superstition and hypocrisy. Then it simply goes hog wild. And then it says in parentheses, the monster gets drunk. And heads for the ash heap, along with Mr. Cushing and his barbecued menace. A story's surprise in a cave scene is nifty and worth waiting for, but not what follows. And that's all it is. I guess the story's surprise in the cave scene is the monster frozen in ice, right?
Yeah.
That was a pretty good scene, but...
Lots of saran wrap, but yeah.
Yeah, it looked like saran wrap. I did think that as well.
But the way they did it, where the cave with the ice, you could
when
see
they were
the
melting
ice
it, there was water dripping, and it was...
Yeah, I mean, but just the way he was framed in the opening, where you could just see him, it was pretty neat.
Yeah, suspended in the air as he's falling. Even though he fell backwards in the beginning, but apparently able
to
flipped. He was kind of like a cat. He turned around, coming back down on all fours. But whatever. All right, Karen, what kind of cocktail rating you want to give this?
Well, I'd give it a 3, but it sounds like you'd give it a 2.
It's not quite a 2, I don't think.
No, it's okay. It's a little different.
It's good. It's a good old classic horror film. That's what I would say about it. In Technicolor.
I like the premise of him going back to his hometown after 10 years. And I think there was something there, but the hypnotist, I don't know. They lost me a little bit there.
Maybe that was a thing in 1963 or
maybe
something, when this was filmed.
I mean, hypnotism is interesting, and some people can be hypnotized and some can't. We've talked about that throughout different podcasts that we've done, because it's in a lot of horror films. But I don't know. I like when stories are kind of reimagined, but I didn't really go along with this one very well. But it's good. It's definitely worth a watch, I think.
I agree. Even if you haven't seen any other Hammer Frankenstein films, this is a good
It stands alone. Yeah, it does.
All right, Karen, are you ready to get into it scene by scene?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The Evil of Frankenstein, 1964. Did you watch this on Amazon Prime?
I did.
Karen? Okay, I did as well. No warnings.
It says rated 16 plus.
Is it? Okay.
Although I'm not sure why.
Film opens and we see immediately it's a Universal picture, Karen. Next thing I have is Scratchy Record, because that's what it sounds like. And then it's a Hammer production film we see.
Starting off where?
I don't know.
In the woods.
Is it though? Oh, yeah,
Yes,
it is in the woods.
It is in the woods.
But it's not a carriage through the woods.
No, but it's still the woods.
It's a cabin in the woods, Karen.
Yes, it is.
Cabin in the woods, and we see an old man and woman leaving crying.
The woman's crying, yes.
And another man enters as they leave, and apparently there's a body lying in state in the cabin. I wrote question mark.
Yeah, there's a man watching them leave, and then he approaches the cabin. They left a little girl in there.
Yeah, a child watches as the body is pulled out a window. And throughout the film, I thought it was going to come back that she was the deaf mute girl, but never did. But in the beginning, she screams and stuff, so I didn't know she wasn't at that point.
But that part right there, if you think about it, that's pretty scary. Like someone's waiting in the woods, you lay this body out in state, and then as soon as you leave, someone steals the body.
As you do,
it was a good start. Like it was starts off with a bang.
So then we see the little girl running through the woods, of course, because she's scared and
I think she's trying to find the couple that left.
maybe. And there's like a windstorm running through the woods, wind's blowing, and she runs into Baron Frankenstein. I wrote it was Peter Cushing, but I knew that was Baron Frankenstein. And then she turns around and runs away. Then back at the cabin, the man and woman arrive with a priest and find the body is missing.
The cross is still there.
So then we see the man who stole the body bringing the body to Baron Frankenstein. And Frankenstein's assistant pays the man.
Yes, and he says the body is still warm. Excellent.
Excellent.
So I got it. I'm taking a ding for the team here.
Ding.
It takes around 12 hours for a human body to be cool to the touch and 24 hours to cool to the core. Rigor mortis commences after 3 hours and lasts until 36 hours after death. But I was surprised that you would stay warm for that long.
How long?
12 hours.
Wow.
To be cool to the touch. Because in a lot of movies and stuff, maybe you feel cooler.
Right, but
when he said he's still warm, I thought, no way. He's not still warm.
To be cool to the touch, don't you have to be considerably less than 98.6 degrees?
Yes, but I just thought it happened kind of quickly once the blood's not flowing. I was just wrong.
I agree.
I just, when he pulled it and said, ooh, the body's still warm, I said, no, it's not. And then when I went and looked, I thought, well, could be.
But Karen, how long does it take, do you think, for a body to decay in a swamp? Inside joke, boys and girls.
Ting.
So then Frankenstein begins to cut out the heart. It looks like he draws where he's going to cut pretty well. Take out the heart. I don't know. And then we have the title screen and credits. And I really like the font. I don't know what it is, but I liked it.
Yeah, it was nice.
So then Frankenstein removes the heart and places it in a jar of dirty water, I wrote.
Yes.
But
maybe with his bare hands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe it's salt water, so it looks cloudy. I don't know. But then he takes it out of that jar and puts it into a fish tank of very clean water with an air pump. So, yeah, whatever.
Lots of sanitary stuff going on.
Yeah. And then we see the priest confronting the man who took the body because the little girl points him out to him. She's a tattletale.
She knows who he is.
And we cut back to Frankenstein's assistant apparently dropping the body into a river that runs underneath his cabin. He opens a trap door and just drops the body in it, which is a good thing to have, I guess.
I mean, necessity.
So then they start the wheelhouse, and apparently that's what creates the electric charge, I wrote, question mark.
But it's stuck.
Yeah. And Frankenstein helps, and then, they get it going, and Frankenstein begins pumping the heart with his hand in the aquarium, trying to revive it.
It looked to me like the electricity was going through the fish tank and he just stuck his hand in there. But it was pretty cool the way he was pumping the heart himself. And then he lets it go and the electricity goes and it starts to pump. It was pretty cool.
And you can kind of see like valves opening and closing.
Yeah.
Even though they're on the, arteries coming out of the heart, but there's, you see a little thing flapping in the water. Well, that was pretty good. And that's whenever here I wrote, the heart is a pretty good prop when it starts beating on its own. That's what I wrote. So then there's pounding on the door, Karen. The priest just busts in.
Yep.
and he accuses Frankenstein of being a blasphemer.
Doing the work of the devil.
As you do. And he starts breaking the equipment, Karen. He just starts
smashing everything.
Being a punk, including the aquarium. And that just pushes Frankenstein over the edge. He pounces on the priest and starts strangling him.
Yeah.
But Hans stops him and pulls him off.
Yes, Hans is his assistant.
Yeah, so then Hans tells Frankenstein that they have to get away. He has to get away. Authorities will be there soon.
Well, Frankenstein starts pouting every time.
They always ruin it. They always
destroy everything. Hey, you're already halfway through the podcast. What do you think? If you like what you hear, can you take a minute and follow us on social media? At Scary Spirits Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
Then we see Frankenstein and Hans heading back to Frankenstein's castle in a carriage. It's in Karnstein, right? Or someplace.
Karlstead, I think.
Okay.
They're in the carriage, but they're going back to the chateau.
Chateau is what they call it. It looks like a fucking castle.
I know. When he goes, there it is. I was like, holy crap. It's huge. I think that comes up in a minute. But anyway.
Then we cut to a beggar girl in the town. And
well, he's talking as they're riding to the chateau. He's saying he needs to go. Because the assistant's like, we can't go back there. They recognize you. You were kicked out. You were never supposed to go back. And Frankenstein's like, yeah, but my chateau is filled with priceless art and rugs and furniture, and I can sell all that stuff.
I kind of missed that part.
And make money. And I'm thinking, if it's been sitting for 10 years and nobody's been there, none of that shit's in there. But anyway.
Probably can.
And he says, no one, it's the afternoon. No one will be there. They'll all be in the fields when they arrive. But surprise.
But we cut to a beggar girl struggling with the townsfolk.
The boys.
She runs into the road and is hit by Frankenstein's coach, his horse, really. And Hans gets out to try to help her and she runs away.
I thought there might have been going to be a love connection there, but no. So I did look up how many deaf people are in the world. And if you're deaf, a lot of times you're also mute because you can't hear the sound, so you can't reproduce it. And deafness and hearing loss are widespread and found in every region and country. Currently, more than 1.5 billion people, nearly 20% of the global population, live with hearing loss.
A hearing loss of some kind? Well, shit,
Yeah,
I probably
that's all I
matched
could
that
find.
criteria.
Well, those of us who went to too many concerts. 430 million out of 1.5 billion have disabling hearing loss. So only 430 million.
Well, is tinnitus considered disabling?
I think you can still hear.
Oh, yeah, I can still hear.
Relative to the beggar girl.
But I have a constant ringing. But it did kind of, it's not debilitating. You kind of just like.
Probably get to the point where you ignore it.
Yeah. But it's always there. But anyway. So apparently there's a fair going on in the town, so they think they can get in mostly undetected because there's a huge crowd.
Yeah, it makes sense. Nobody's going to pay attention to them.
They drive through the town, arrive at the castle, and it is overgrown with vines. They enter and find it a mess. Frankenstein does not look pleased, I wrote.
No, everything's gone. As I said, when they walk up, I said, there's not going to be anything in there. And it's ransacked.
He proceeds to the laboratory. It's also a mess. And there's an effigy, I think, hanging of him.
Yes. Why can't they just leave me alone? He says.
Yeah. So next, Frankenstein recounts to Hans what happened previously. So this is the big flashback scene where we spend about a half hour learning about what happened previously.
Yes, but because Hans is a new assistant.
As he begins talking, the camera does pan around the castle and then goes to the door, and then we start seeing. And I thought that was a good night. That was a nice shot.
Yeah, I agree.
So then in the flashback, we see Frankenstein in his laboratory bringing the creature to life. And next I wrote, it's a good scene. This whole scene is pretty good when he's bringing it back to life. All the effects and everything going on.
All the electricity, the lightning rod, the whole thing.
So creature comes to life. Frankenstein is observing the creature walking around the lab. And right here I wrote, it looks nothing like the Christopher Lee creature. And then at one point it burns its hand on some fire. So then it learns that fire, bad, fire, bad.
Yes.
Even though this creature never talks. So then Frankenstein, we see a scene of him feeding the creature.
He's trying to feed him, but he doesn't want to eat it. And then does he want the raw meat? Is that what he wants?
I don't know. I wrote, apparently he is not a good cook. That's what I wrote.
Yeah, because he comes
But
over.
then he gets up and just grabs the ribs and just starts eating them. So
yeah, I think it's because they're not cooked.
okay.
Because later he's eating sheep guts and stuff.
He does, which comes next. So then I guess at some point the next day or whatever.
So Frankenstein is letting the creature just walk around the laboratory, apparently.
Yeah,
because when he wakes up, when Frankenstein wakes up the next morning,
he gone.
Yeah. Well, the creature has left.
He is left.
Yes.
So then Frankenstein goes out in the woods to look for it. He comes upon mutilated livestock.
He just follows the mutilated livestock.
And we see angry townsfolk arrive and they shoot the creature and Frankenstein. And they try to arrest Frankenstein. And then the creature escapes, climbs up on a rocky hill, and is shot and falls over a cliff.
And they arrest Frankenstein.
Which is it's a rocky cliff behind that matte painting.
Yes.
But it was pretty good, I think.
But he does delay the
64.
crowd, the mob, and the police. So he tries to help the monster get away.
So then we learn that Frankenstein was ordered to leave town. He was banished. He was exiled. And he worked and saved every penny, Karen. He worked as a laborer and he saved every penny, Karen, until he could start again.
It's dedication.
Then we cut to the fair in the town and we see the beggar girl.
Looking at the food.
Yes, I thought she was going to steal a loaf of bread there for a second and run away. I would have.
It looked pretty good, actually.
Make my blood sugar go crazy, but yeah. Frankenstein and Hans.
Some things are worth it.
And they buy masks to go into the inn to eat.
So come on, you're going to tell, when they put them on, did you say they put on their Batman and Robin masks?
I wrote they look like the Green Hornet and Kato.
Okay, well, because one was black and one was green. And I was like, this is Batman and Robin. I'm not as well versed in the comics as you, so I only went with that.
Green Hornet and Kato. That's exactly what I thought. So then Frankenstein orders his meal. And there's the whole thing with the innkeeper where the innkeeper says he's not serving food. And Frankenstein reads him the fucking riot act about how his license says he has to serve food. And
he's kind of a dick and he's not laying low. And he's not laying low.
No, he isn't.
Like he's not going to go in and no one's going to. He's
almost like, don't you know who I am?
Yes,
oh, never mind.
Exactly. And his assistant is like, simmer down, simmer down.
So then he sees the Meister burger across the room having a drink with a large busted woman, I wrote, Karen.
And I think the police constable is there also.
Yes.
Blonde and busty, the woman is.
Yes. And then he notices the Meister burger is wearing his ring. And then he's like, oh, hell no.
He goes crazy.
He does. And he draws the attention of the police. He tells them to arrest the Burgermeister.
Because he took his stuff.
I'm like, dude.
This is not how you go incognito.
Low, right?
He's not incognito.
Might as well take your fucking mask off at this point.
I know, at this point, what's the point?
Because the chief of police recognizes him and they run away. Oh, run away. And then we see Zoltan, the hypnotic, and he has hypnotized a man and tells him he is the monster Frankenstein. And he begins walking, with his arms out and all that shit. And then he asks for 2 more volunteers and he picks Frankenstein and Hans as volunteers. And then the police arrive and the police force everyone to leave the little tent there.
So they never once looked up at the stage to see them up there.
No, they didn't. But Zoltan's very upset. He jumps down and argues with them. And while they argue, Frankenstein and Hans leave.
Yeah, they ask if he has permits. He doesn't have the right permits. And
So then we see the Burgermeister Meisterburger fixing his nightcap, getting ready for bed
with a lovely lady.
with the lovely blonde. She's all right. Frankenstein busts in and finds all of his belongings in the Burgermeister's room.
Yes, his furniture. And then he says, the funny thing is he's standing next to him and they're not the same size at all. And he says, "You're lucky we're the same size." Apparently, he stole all his clothes too. He has everything.
Yes. Burgermeister tells Frankenstein that his property was confiscated. Police arrive. Burgermeister tells them to arrest him. Frankenstein runs into the bedroom and bars the door with a chair, fancy chair. Then he ties a sheet to the bed frame and escapes out the window. And I wrote, the blonde, busty girl seems very impressed.
She does. It's like a James Bond, Robin Hood moment or something.
So then Frankenstein and Hans make their way up to the mountains, trying to escape, get away. And a storm is coming, and then the beggar girl arrives and asks them to follow her. She takes them to a cave, and she even offers them food. She's a good girl.
Yeah, she has straw for them to sleep on. And it's funny because Frankenstein's just like hoofing up the mountain, and Hans is like, I can't go any further. I have to stop. And he's the younger dude. So that was kind of funny. But a big storm is coming, so they're going to have to stop.
Next morning, they wake up and Frankenstein finds the deaf mute girl mumbling to the creature encased in ice.
Yes. And he's just floating there. So I tried to find what's the longest someone's been suspended in ice and survived.
Cryogenics.
Well, more like in a natural,
okay,
like fell on a mountain. Or in 2006, a Japanese man was found on a mountain after being in ice for 23 days. He had a body temperature of 22 degrees Celsius, which is 71 degrees Fahrenheit, and survived. But then I found, has a human ever survived being frozen? And there was a Swedish radiologist who survived after a skiing accident in 1999, left her trapped under a layer of ice for 80 minutes in freezing water. So there's a big disparity there. So I'm not sure. 23 days seems like an awfully long time. It
does seem like an awfully long time.
I would go more. I'd think 80 minutes would be impressive. But she was in freezing water. He was actually in ice. So I don't know if that makes a difference or what.
Well, in water, you think he would drown, right? It's different. I mean, you're going to suffocate, I guess, regardless.
Yeah, I don't think there's air either place, but
right.
I don't know. That just another ding on my computer, but it's very different, the two examples I found. Most of the information was on cryogenics, and right now, if they freeze you, you can't come back. But who knows in the future if that's your thing.
Especially if it's just your head.
Well, have you not watched The Brain That Wouldn't Die? That's not a problem.
If I was going to do that, I'd have my whole body froze, I would think. But I ain't. So apparently the creature fell into the glacier, blah, blah, blah. Frankenstein wants to restore him. So then they build a fire to melt the ice around the creature.
Yeah, and it looks like a lot of saran wrap around.
It does.
To make it look like ice.
It is dripping.
It's okay. It was just kind of funny. But they are melting it.
Then we cut to Frankenstein, Hans, and the deaf girl taking the creature back to the castle, dragging him through the woods, the rocks.
Oh, he's on a stretcher.
Yeah, they made a stretcher out of logs, it looked like. And right here I wrote 41 minutes left. They found the creature and we got 41 minutes left. So that means we're almost an hour in. 50 minutes, whatever, same diff. Then we see Frankenstein and Hans working on the equipment in the lab.
Yeah, they're going to try to revive him.
Things don't go as planned, but the creature's hand does begin to move when they revive him. And the deaf mute girl looks very excited.
So at some point, when he's telling the story about the creature and how he animated him, I don't know if you noticed, but I did. But when he opened his eyes originally, the creature had blue eyes. And so does Peter Cushing, has very blue eyes. So it's like, how common are blue eyes? Because, So they're the second most common eye color, and about 8 to 10% of the world's population has blue eyes. But in the US, the percentage is higher, and about 25% of people have blue eyes. Brown eyes, of course, are the world's most common eye color, with about 70% of the world's population having brown eyes.
You call me common.
I call myself common too. But it's just when the creature opened his eyes were blue, and Peter Cushing's eyes are very blue. So I went off on a tangent there. But okay, moving on.
I didn't notice. Guess I wasn't staring into Peter Cushing's eyes.
Well, sometimes he's right in the frame.
So then Frankenstein tests the creature's responsiveness by trying to burn his hand with a candle, but there is no response. Apparently he is brain dead, and he blames the angry townsfolk.
He destroyed
Why?
his brain with their bullets. They do show him repairing the brain a little, like pulling out pellets or something. I don't know, but
yeah, a little bit.
He's alive, but his brain is dormant.
So then Frankenstein begins to believe that perhaps Zoltan could mentally shock the creature's brain back into life. Because Hans goes this whole thing, oh, we just need to be a larger electrical shock. And Frankenstein says, no, he needs a mental shock.
And he goes, wait, the man at the carnival.
So Frankenstein goes to see Zoltan. He busts right into his little room there and introduces himself. Frankenstein tells Zoltan he would like to hire him and that he can stay in his castle. Zoltan's already packing up all his shit anyway.
Because the police were making him leave because he didn't have a permit.
And he takes a nudie picture off his wall, and he says, because Frankenstein says, I need you to hypnotize someone or whatever, revive her. And he's like, it's not a girl, is it?
Yeah, because he says, I'm in enough trouble.
As you would. And then we see Frankenstein and Zoltan at the castle. Frankenstein shows him the creature. Frankenstein tells Zoltan that he wants him to stimulate the creature's brain. Zoltan agrees. He says he will need a strong light and a mirror.
Yeah, he's not put off by the monster at all.
No, and I'm not sure why he wanted a mirror because he didn't use it.
No, he did not.
It was more like a bright light in a magnifying glass.
Magnifier, yeah.
So then Zoltan hypnotizes the creature, basically, is what we see next.
And we kind of see a sly look on Zoltan's face. You get a little inkling that he has a plan or he's not a good guy. You can tell right around when he comes to the chateau, because he drinks all their brandy too.
Yeah, so next, the creature wakes up and it jumps up from the chair and pushes Zoltan away. Frankenstein and Hans grab it and subdue it with chloroform. So next, Frankenstein offers Zoltan brandy before he leaves. And I wrote right here, Zoltan seems sneaky.
Yes.
He's shady. I wouldn't trust that dude. Zoltan explains to Frankenstein while they drink brandy. I did look for a brandy drink, actually.
Brandy fixes everything.
Frankenstein Reviver seems better. But anyway, Zoltan explains to Frankenstein while they drink brandy that the creature will not respond to him. He won't follow your directions.
Yeah, he's snarky now. He's like, you have no control. I have all the control. I'm the one with the power. He will only listen to me.
So Frankenstein tells the creature to stand up, no response. Zoltan tells the creature to do what he says, and the creature stands up, and Zoltan tells the creature to walk, and it does. The creature follows his every command.
Yes.
Zoltan tells Frankenstein, hey, I want a partnership. Frankenstein agrees.
He's kind of blackmailed into it. There's nothing he can do now because Zoltan has the power over the creature.
Later that evening, Zoltan goes to the lab and tells the creature to go to the village and find gold. And he tells him exactly where to find it, apparently. And we cut to the creature in the village. He happens upon a drunk dude as he's leaving with gold from the church, question mark.
Yes,
I don't know.
It looks like he went to
looks
the
like
church.
He got a cross and some candlesticks.
Chalices and candlesticks, yeah. And there's some nice shadow work in there. Cross, a chalice, and...
Chalice, oh.
Yeah.
I didn't see a chalice, but...
I did.
So then the drunk passes out. Creature arrives back at the lab and gives the gold items to Zoltan,
who's very excited.
Next day, I guess, Hans and Frankenstein discuss Zoltan Frankenstein tells Han that when Zoltan wakes, to send him to me, I want to speak with him. And we cut to the drunk talking to the cops very quickly. Back to the castle, Frankenstein gives Zoltan a list of tests he wants him to perform on the creature.
And Zoltan says, well, he might be tired after last night. And Frankenstein's like, what do you mean? He's had a good rest. Zoltan's like, yeah, he'll be fine.
And we cut back to the drunk talking to the police. Another quick shot. Then we cut to Zoltan talking to the creature.
He's a 10-foot man.
And Zoltan tells the creature the people in the village must be punished, especially the burgermeister and the chief of police.
Yeah, he's giving him a hit list.
And the deaf mute girl stumbles in, and I wrote hears, but she doesn't hear, but she seems to understand what he is saying. It's not good, whatever it is.
And he roughs her up a little bit.
He assaults her. He begins to assault her, but then he stops. Nah.
He says, I don't need to waste my time on trash like you. I'll have my pickled soon, because he's going to have all the gold.
So then we cut to the creature bursting into the Meisterburger, or the Meisterburger's bedroom, and they fight. And the creature apparently pounds him against the wall until he's gone, I guess. I don't know. Back at the police station, it's 11:30 p.m. Creature arrives, kills the policeman, who is kind of acting like he's the chief. Back at the castle, Zoltan gets some more brandy. Cut to the police questioning the Burgermeister's girlfriend, I guess, whatever she is. She tells them it wasn't a man, it was a monster. Back at the castle, Zoltan says to the monster that he did not mean him to kill. I didn't mean to kill.
Well, what do you think he meant him to do?
Slap the wrist?
I don't know. It's weird.
Zoltan tries to rub the blood off the monster's hand with straw and grabs his gold. Frankenstein enters. Frankenstein kicks Zoltan out of the castle. Zoltan tells Frankenstein he will kill him.
I'll kill you for this.
Frankenstein tells Hans to start packing the things they're leaving.
Yeah, they're going to be in big trouble now. They need to quickly leave.
And we see the deaf mute girl cleaning the creature's hands. And Zoltan calls to the creature from a grate above, like a fence grate.
I don't know, but
thing. I don't know.
If it rained, a lot of rain would come in.
It would. And he commands the creature to let him in. The creature breaks away the gate. Deaf mute girl tries to warn Frankenstein. Creature enters with a spiked piece of metal. I don't know.
It's like part of a fence or part of the grate. Yeah. But it looks like a spear now.
Yeah. Fence rail is what I called it. Frankenstein uses a lamp with fire to repel the creature.
Creature's kind of caught in the middle because he's hypnotized by Zoltan, but he knows who Frankenstein is, and they're both kind of telling him what to do, and he's sort of wavering back and forth.
Zoltan stops the creature and tells it to go back and kill Frankenstein. The creature stabs Zoltan with the fence rail. He gone.
Right in the heart, it looked like.
Yep. Creature leaves. Frankenstein tells Hans to keep an eye on the creature as it leaves.
He runs to get chloroform, I think, from the lab.
So Frankenstein goes down to the lab and tries to pour liquid from a very large bottle into a very small bottle.
Why didn't he just grab the big bottle?
Is he trying to mix?
I don't know. I don't know.
I didn't understand that. It looked stupid because he was spilling most of it. He comes out of the castle and is captured by the police.
Runs smack into the police.
And we cut to the cave. Hans arrives. Deaf mute girl is taking care of the creature. Cut to Frankenstein in jail. Again, we see the drunk telling the chief his story. Chief believes the monster is behind the killings. He says they will find him and kill him, and they'll burn him. We're going to burn him. Cut to the deaf mute girl and Hans leaving the cave. Angry townsfolk gathering their pitchforks to go after the creature.
I think the girl falls and hurts her ankle, so the creature starts carrying her, right?
Well,
yeah.
We see Frankenstein in the jail, and he finds he still has his bottle of chloroform in his jacket pocket, apparently.
I said they didn't check his coat.
No, but the policeman outside hears a noise. He goes to investigate and sees a gold coin on the floor in Frankenstein's cell. Frankenstein appears to be asleep. Policeman goes to grab the coin, and Frankenstein puts him in a headlock and puts him out with chloroform. Cut to Hans and the creature and the deaf mute girl arriving back at the castle.
Why did they go back to the castle?
Oh. Then Frankenstein leaves the jail and steals a carriage. And we see angry townsfolk on the way to the castle. Frankenstein riding through the woods in the carriage, and he passes the villagers. This is when there's bad green
almost
screen.
runs them over.
At the castle, it looks like the creature has a migraine, I wrote.
Yes. Been there.
He's holding his head. He ain't doing so well. Deaf mute girl gives the creature brandy. He doesn't like it at first, but
funny how he comes around.
But then he starts, tasting it some
bad.
more. Yeah. He opens another bottle and drinks it, although he wastes most of it because he can't pour into his mouth. Frankenstein arrives at the castle. Frankenstein and Hans run down to the lab, and the creature is throwing bottles of brandy around now.
He's mad.
Yeah, Frankenstein tells Hans to get the girl out. Creature's destroying the lab. He's an angry drunk, I wrote, apparently. Creature grabs a bottle of chloroform and begins to drink it, ? I wrote.
Yeah, he thinks it's brandy, but it's not.
Frankenstein tries to stop him, too late. And then the lab catches on fire. Is chloroform flammable or some shit?
I think it's all the brandy he threw around.
That's probably it. And the door is blocked by fallen timbers suddenly.
Yeah, like somehow he destroys the
big
lab.
Styrofoam logs fall.
Yeah, it starts to collapse for unknown reasons.
Frankenstein and Hans try to escape. Creature's not happy. Frankenstein grabs a chain and swings across the room like Errol Flynn, trying to save the creature.
Oh, I said he Tarzans it over.
He was a lot more romantic than Tarzan. He was Errol Flynn.
Okay.
Hans and the deaf mute girl try to escape the castle. Angry townsfolk arrive. Hans and the deaf mute girl run away from the castle as it explodes. Credits. The end. So there is sequel potential, which you didn't mention, but
true, there is.
Although it's not your favorite kind when we see a hand coming up out of the rubble or something.
It's subtle sequel potential. It's more like we're supposed to think he died when maybe he didn't. We don't see anything that indicates that he escaped.
There's just an explosion in one tower of the castle.
The part that's not a painting.
The rest of the castle's fine. All right, what'd you think of the Frankenstein Reviver cocktail, Karen?
It's pretty good. I think I would add Sprite.
I think it was delicious.
Instead of the simple syrup, I would add Sprite to get a little mix. But I like the taste.
When I first tasted it, I enjoyed it, but I'm like, I could use a little Sprite. I did think that, actually. I wouldn't substitute simple syrup with Sprite. I might add just a little Sprite.
Yeah, I like the combination of the orange and the melon and the gin.
Then it wouldn't be a Frankenstein Reviver. It'd be some other drink that's already out there, I'm sure.
But it would still have the color, I think. Maybe a little lighter. But no, it's good.
It'd be better with Sprite.
I think so, but it certainly fit the movie well. Kudos to you for that.
Thank you, Karen.
You weren't hoping that Frankenstein was revived.
I tried to find a brandy one, but I didn't like any of them. I had lots of ingredients I didn't have.
Yeah, sometimes they're really complicated.
Yeah, most of the brandy ones are just like, no, I don't have that obscure liqueur. And I'm not getting it for this one drink. All right. Anything we learned? It is tasty. Anything we learned today? It's a good summertime drink, actually, I think. It's kind of fruity.
We learned how long it takes a body to be cool to the touch, how many people are deaf around the world, sort of how long a person can be frozen and revived, and what percentage of people have blue eyes. This was a tough one. It had a lot of things that we've already talked about before, like chloroform and hypnotism. And, I guess I could repeat for people who haven't listened to all of them.
I don't remember that shit, Karen.
All right. Well, next time I'll just repeat it.
All right. That's pretty good, though. Are we ready to move on to next film, Karen?
We are.
Well, let's see. I believe that's your choice then.
It is.
What would that be, Karen? What film have you chosen for us?
I have chosen the 1983 film, The Hunger.
Any reason you chose that film, Karen?
Well, it's Pride Month coming up, and
And
it has some pride in it.
does it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll look forward to that. Although,
I do
maybe
have a
not.
drink.
You do?
So David Bowie is in this
Oh,
movie,
okay.
and he had a favorite
Anyone
drink.
else?
Well, there are other people in it, but David Bowie had a favorite drink
Oh, did he?
called it's a martini, but it's a gin martini. But Bombay Sapphire Gin claims that he used theirs. I think he was an alcoholic, so I don't think he drank later in his life, but this when he was drinking. So I don't want to disrespect him, but apparently this is what he drank when he was drinking.
It's a gin martini.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
what we call
basically
it?
how it is. Yeah. You need a 1/4 ounce of dry
So
vermouth,
that's
two-
2 gin drinks in a row.
2 ounces of gin garnished with an olive. You shake the vermouth and the gin into your martini glass, and then you garnish with an olive.
Well, I ain't gonna do that, but
Well, it adds a little salt, which I think adds to the drink. You don't like olives?
no. So it's gin and sweet vermouth?
Dry vermouth. He
Dry
liked a
vermouth.
dry martini.
Okay.
Apparently. Obviously, I don't really know. This is what was on the interwebs.
Well, it's always right. They're always right.
But we've done
Okay.
a lot of vampire drinks. It's a vampire movie. So I thought I would just go in a little bit of a different direction.
It's a Pride vampire movie.
So it's according to the interwebs. So we'll see.
Is that anything like sparkling vampire movies, Karen?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I haven't seen any of those either, so whatever. All right. Awesome. 1983. It's more in my wheelhouse, Karen.
Your glory years.
Glory years, yeah. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
Well, I'd like to thank our listener. You know why, Greg? Because there are a lot of podcasts out there. So I'm really happy when they spend time with us. What about you? Who do you need to thank?
Karen, I need to once again thank the band Verse 13 for providing all the music in the Scary Spirits podcast.
The music definitely makes the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Hey, it's Karen, and I'm here to talk to you about getting social with us. Did you know you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast? Or check out our website, scaryspirits.com. If you have something to say, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening. Please drink responsibly.